Okay, let us start. So, taxation. Okay, so this is introduction to different types of incomes, right? And what will be the usual tax treatment એવું આપ્યું છે. So just go through this. Usually interest income is taxed at a high rate. Dividend income slightly lesser rate usually. Capital gains no tax rate એનાથી બી ઓછો હશે. And within capital gains, short-term capital gains would be taxed at a higher rate than long-term capital gains. And certain countries also have wealth taxes. But usually they will not be included in discussions. Then most countries adopt progressive tax systems. Tax rate increases with the income levels. And for every slice of income, different rates will apply. So they have given this example, but I think there was some issue in this. There was some issue in this problem. ચેક કરો એકવાર ટેલી થાય છે. They're saying as a shortcut we can use the income numbers in column 3. This column they are saying. So it's like 0 to 10,000 માં 10% લાગશે. So that is 1,000 plus 20% on whatever you are making about 10,000. એટલે ભાઈ 10 to 40,000 હોય તો 30,000 per 20% લાગે. So that should be 6,000. અને પ્લસ 1,000 છે તો આ 7,000 હોવું જોઈએ, પણ આમાં પછી કંઈક પ્રોબ્લેમ એ લોકોએ કર્યા છે. So if taxable income is 6 lakhs, she would pay tax. So on your own you find out 6 lakhs માં કેટલા લાગે. Because I suspect these calculations are not correct. કારણ કે એ લોકોએ તો શું કર્યું, 40,000 ના 20% એમ એટલે 8,000. 1 lakh ના 30% એટલે 30,000. પણ એવું ના હોય ને, this 1 lakh એમાં પહેલા 10,000 માં 10% લાગે, પછી 10 to 40 જે 30,000 છે એમાં 20% લાગે. So that's a mistake. Suppose 6 lakhs હોય તો you find out કેટલી tax liability આવે. See આ 1,000 આવી 10,000 સુધીની, પછી આ 30,000 પર 20% એટલે 6,000, પછી 40,000 to 1 lakh 60,000 પર 30%, so 18,000. પછી 1 lakh to 5 lakhs. So a 4 lakhs per 40%. So 1,60,000. અને પછી 5 લાખ ની ઉપર 1 લાખ પર 50% એટલે બીજા 50,000.
2 lakh.
હા. સોરી કેટલું આવે છે? 160 plus 50, 210, 228, 234, 235. Yes. So it will not be 250, it will be 235,000. Okay. Obviously, marginal tax rate is 50%, and average will be 235 divided by 6 lakhs. So slightly less than 40%. Then different sources and different rates. Just go through this example. Information from previous example. Calculate tax Stella beggars would have to pay if income from employment was 4,50,000. Receive euro 60,000 of interest income and 1 lakh of dividends. So if there is no favorable tax treatment for investment income, then you have to find as per total 450 plus 65, 10, 610. So as per our calculation 6,10,000 હોય તો છેલ્લે આજે 50,000 આવેલું એના વડે I think 55,000 આવી જાય. So this would result in 240k. Right? And on the other hand, 25,000 of interest income is exempt from tax. So out of this 60,000, 25,000 would be subject to no tax. એટલે બીજા 35,000 જ એડ કરવાના. અને જે ડિવિડન્ડ છે એના પર 20%. So 1 lakh per 20%, 20,000. Right? So overall tax rate would come down. Although our numbers will not match, but you get the point, right? Huh, teacher? Okay. Fine. Impact of taxes on investment returns. So if income is taxed on an annual basis, then this is an accrual tax. And if tax is only collected at the end of investment horizon, that is a deferred tax. Obviously, deferred tax is better. Dividends and interest are usually taxed on accrual basis because every year they will be taxed. Capital gains are on a deferral basis. And they have given this formula, but formula logic થી set થઈ જશે. Go through this data. investment of 50,000, flat rate tax of 25% is applied to know all types of income. Return is 8% per year over 20-year horizon. Return is to be taxed annually. So your 8% is reduced by 25%, it becomes 6%. Compounding happens at 6% for 20 years. So 50,000 becomes this much, right? Proportion of gains consumed by tax. So if there would have been no tax, so your future value would have been this much. So the difference 72,691, that is the tax drag in dollar amounts. And in percentage, tax drag dollar divided by total potential benefit. 50,000 becomes 233. So you could have made around 180, out of which 72 has been consumed by taxes. Percentage tax rate 39.7% exceeds the stated tax rate of 25% because of compounding. And they have just shown here horizon વધે તમારો એમ tax drag વધશે. Is this fine? બરાબર છે? Okay. Then if that's a deferred tax, mostly capital gains deferred oil, right? So you don't need to remember this formula. We can do this logically. Again, look at the data. So 50,000 flat rate tax of 25% applied to all types of income and investment returns. Again 8% 20-year horizon. But now it is in the form of capital gains and to be paid when asset is sold at the end of 20 years. So our method is first you find out the ending amount. So 50,000 compounds at 8% for 20 years, right? That is how much. That is 2 lakh 33,000. Yes, or 048, right? So our capital gain is 50,000 becomes this much. So 1,83,048, and tax is going to be 20 25% of this capital gains tax. This is our capital gain 60, this 1,83,048. So your capital gain comes out to be 45,762. Correct? So you deduct this from ending amount. So you will have 1,87,286. Correct? Hmm. And again here they have calculated the tax drag, but because there is no compounding, it comes out to be exactly 25%. So again, those things they have summarized here, just go through. Tax drag increases with higher returns. It increases with a higher horizon, longer horizon, right? And then they are saying in many countries tax advantage accounts are available, right? Through which you can defer or avoid certain taxes. Examples are retirement investment plan. Okay. Now sometimes in case of capital gain, your cost basis will be different. So obviously your capital gain will be calculated with respect to the cost basis. So again they've given a formula, but I don't see any need for this formula. You just look at this example. We can follow the same procedure that we did just now to find out the taxes. So again 50,000, but cost basis is 20,000. So whatever we did here, right, our ending value came out to be 233. But now capital gains, you'll have to do not minus 50,000, you'll have to do minus 20,000. So this will become 213048 and taxes will increase. So your post tax amount will decrease. So just make sure ये answer આવે છે અહીંયા. Instead of paying tax on 1,83,000, I think you'll have to pay it on 2,13,000. Is that okay? हाँ आरामથી. Okay. So same logic, everything is same. Just for finding the capital gain, instead of initial value, you have to subtract the cost basis. Then they have talked about obviously inflation. So whatever dollar amount or percentage you are finding out, till now we have been doing on a nominal basis, but we can also do it on real basis. हमारे inflation जो divide करવું પડશે. So they have given this example. What are her? What is her wealth in real terms after 20 years? So we found out this answer, right? But then if inflation was 3% every year, then on real basis her wealth is only 99,543. So obviously over longer term, you will need to worry about inflation. And over very long term, if you can beat tax as well as inflation by a small amount, then that will also be a very good outcome. So they have combined everything here, but they are alag alag જે આપણે હમણાં કર્યા ને, they have given in this example. Just go through. થાય છે. Let me know if there is any issue. હા, એકવાર આરામથી જોઈ લે. Expected wealth in after tax terms in 15 years. So this dividend 3% is taxed at 20%. So effectively it becomes 2.4% compounding. Whereas price appreciation is subject to only capital gains. એ રીતે કરશો તો તમારું આ આવશે, right? Then from nominal to real, so 2.5% inflation you divide. And then these are just variations of scenario. એટલે મેથડ એની જ છે પણ પછી નંબર ચેન્જ કરી દે છે. જો ડિવિડન્ડ રેટ હાઈ થઈ ગયો તો we will suffer because that is taxed every year, right? Because if such a caselet occurs in exam, so these are easy pickings. આરામથી થઈ જાય, right? Okay, so that was about taxes. પછી આ જોઈ લેજો. આમાં જે કેલ્ક્યુલેટિવ છે એ પછી કરજો, પણ at least do the third, fourth and sixth. આ ત્રણ ટ્રાય કરી લો. Third and fourth, correct. Average will be less than marginal. Okay. Again, fourth is A. Sixth, impact of inflation on after tax investment returns is least accurate. So I think least accurate, so C तो बराबर है, but B may not be correct. Let us see. Hmm. So what example they have given? So it does have an impact, right? So B. Okay. Then individual investors and IPS. So this might be important for some of the questions, right? So what should IPS cover? And this I think you'll have to remember. Huh? This is worth remembering because if you are asked to prepare IPS तो આ તમારે cover કરવું પડશે. So client background and investment objectives, key investment parameters, asset allocation, portfolio management and implementation, and duties and responsibility of the private wealth manager. And each of these might have subparts. So client background and investment objectives. So client's background details are obtained from personal, financial, and tax information that the wealth manager has gathered on the client. All the components of client's investment portfolio as well as any other financial assets that client might be holding outside the portfolio. All those things you should know. Goals can be planned or unplanned, and they can be one ongoing or one off in nature. Your role is to quantify the objectives wherever possible, also prioritize and reconcile competing objectives. Wealth manager can use capital sufficiency analysis. So go through this example. Preparing client investment objectives. I think this is simple. एक बार जोई लो. Go through the data. Hmm. So these are the objectives. Send our children to college, and that might be, what is the age of children? Oldest is 8, so maybe in 10 years they will need that money, and then fund retirement in 30 years. And they also want to make a bequest for their children. So key issues whether all these objectives can be met, right? Credit card debt of 20,000, maybe that has to be settled first. So just go through the explanation. As I said, first goal might be 10 years away, apart from paying credit card debt immediately. As an advisor, you can help them quantify and prioritize. These are the keywords. So this is easy, right? आमा कहीं छे नहीं. Nothing very complicated. Okay. Acha, now key investment parameters. This you will have to remember. First is risk tolerance, right? It is based on willingness and ability. You have to go with lower of the two. And risk tolerance can also differ according to goals. Goals which are very critical, more important for them, client has a low risk tolerance. Then generally nearer term goals will also mean a lower risk tolerance. And time horizon. Many times time horizon will be specified as a range, and multiple goals might have different time horizons. So same example, different time horizons. First is 10 years, right? Trust fund is set up for children after their education, maybe after 20 years. That is an assumption. And retirement, they already stated after 30 years. Then there might be asset class preference, means client would have given you a preference, at least in terms of a negative list, that following asset classes should not be included. Maybe alternate investment, maybe derivatives. Then important liquidity preference. Liquidity needs that have not been specified in objectives or background should be included here. And I suggest, in your own words, you make a kind of a list that these 3 4 things have to be mentioned in IPS, right? And then within that, suppose parameters છે તો એમાં પાછું આ 2 3 વસ્તુઓ એવી રીતે એક મેપ બનાવી લેજો, because this is important. Other preferences, unique preferences, Might include a concentrated position, say if client is a CEO or a founder or something, or maybe because of inheritance, and maybe ESG preferences, and maybe other constraints. Just go through this for the exam વાળું જે છે ને, just go through this. Done? Okay. Then asset allocation you should specify, right? And by that we mean strategic asset allocation, which indicates a long-term target allocation. Tactical, whether allowed or not, should also be mentioned. Then how you are going to do the implementation, right? Private wealth manager needs clear guidance on the following issues. What is the discretionary authority? What actions you can take without explicit permission or approval? Some clients will give full discretion, some will have some limits. A wealth manager providing non-discretionary service can make recommendations but cannot act on them without approval. And obviously, rebalancing frequency should be discussed and mentioned. And it could be time based, also called calendar based or percentage based, threshold based. Then, whether tactical asset allocation is allowed or not, and if allowed, then in what ranges, that has to be mentioned. And implementation means which all vehicles can be used. Duties and responsibilities of the private wealth manager, just go through. Fairly general aspects are given. Formulating and reviewing the IPS. Obviously, then asset allocation and construction of portfolio accordingly. Monitoring and rebalancing. Monitoring costs. Monitoring third party service providers. This is important. Reporting portfolio performance. Reporting taxes and financial statements. And voting proxies. Last is IPS appendix. This includes details of items that typically change more frequently than other sections like model portfolio performance and capital market expectations. And I think they've ended the chapter with this comprehensive example. Parts. Okay, so start going through this. हो रहा है? This Du Bois thing also appeared last time, right? These are the modifications. Objectives need to change. Now there should be no mention of supporting his son, right? Instead, support the lifestyle and total bequest of 2.4 million at her death. Are you following this? And they have given a specific figure, right? 75,000 per year on a real basis. So then this needs to be checked whether portfolio can provide this kind of payout. And because this is the highest priority, then she might need to reduce her bequest. Please tolerance no changes. Horizon is again more than 15 years. Allocation only to domestic equities. Liquidity cash reserve should be increased from 10,000 to 25,000. Here only domestic equities. They have added that in constraint. And from previous details, she has a large holding in Chic Apparel, I think, which was her enterprise, and it will have embedded capital gains. बराबर છે? Try the last quiz. First would be B. Correct. Second, constraint. Okay. Portfolio management section. I think rebalancing. Hmm. Correct. Liquidity preference. Yes. Hmm. Correct. Fine. So this was private wealth. Next time we will start with institutional. And I think, yeah, it will require two sessions. And I think in later part there are some calculations. This one. Yeah, so this will be two sessions. We'll start next time. Okay. Bye.